What kind of anger makes a brother raise his hand against his own blood? What kind of jealousy becomes so dark that it writes the first murder in human history? This is not just a story of two brothers. It is a story about envy, pride, faith, and the dangerous whisper of Shaitan. It is the story of the two sons of Prophet Adam, a story that teaches us how one bad feeling, if not controlled, can destroy everything. After Allah sent Prophet Adam, and Hawa, to earth, human life began in its simplest and purest form. There were no cities, no nations, and no crowds of people, only one family living under the open sky. The world was new, fresh, and quiet. Adam, taught his children about Allah, about obedience, and about right and wrong. His home was filled with guidance, faith, and the direct teachings of a prophet. Among his children were two sons who grew up side by side. They learned from the same father, lived in the same environment, and received the same lessons about worship and honesty. Yet, as they became young men, their paths slowly began to differ. One of them chose to work with the land. He became a farmer, planting seeds, waiting for rain, and harvesting crops from the soil. The other chose to care for animals. He became a shepherd, raising sheep and selecting the best from his flock. Both worked hard, and both were blessed with provision from Allah. As time passed, a test came from Allah. In those early days, certain matters were decided by divine command, and obedience was the true measure of faith. A disagreement arose between the two brothers regarding a marriage decision that was guided by Allah's instruction. One brother felt unhappy and dissatisfied with what had been decided. Instead of accepting Allah's wisdom with patience, a feeling of jealousy quietly entered his heart. He began comparing himself with his brother. Why him? Why not me? These thoughts slowly poisoned his peace. To resolve the dispute, Allah commanded both brothers to offer a sacrifice. The one whose sacrifice was accepted would be proven sincere. The shepherd carefully selected his best and healthiest animal. He offered it with a pure heart, seeking only Allah's pleasure. The farmer, however, chose crops of low quality. His offering was not given with true sincerity. When Allah accepted the sacrifice of the shepherd and rejected the other, the result became clear. When the sacrifice of one brother was accepted and the other was rejected, the test should have ended there. It was a clear sign from Allah showing whose heart was sincere. But instead of reflecting on his mistake, the rejected brother allowed anger to take control of him. His pride was hurt. He felt embarrassed and humiliated. In his mind, the problem was no longer his weak offering, it was his brother. Jealousy began to burn inside him like a fire. Every time he looked at his brother, he remembered the acceptance from Allah. Instead of improving himself, he blamed the one who had done nothing wrong. Shaitan whispered dangerous thoughts into his heart, making him believe that removing his brother would solve his pain. The whisper grew stronger day by day until it became a dark intention. Seeing the anger in his brother's eyes, the righteous brother spoke calmly and wisely. He reminded him that Allah only accepts from those who are sincere and God-fearing. He explained that the rejection was not because of favoritism, but because of intention. Worship without sincerity has no value. He tried to soften his brother's heart, hoping that he would understand and repent. Then he said words that showed his deep faith, "Even if you raise your hand to kill me, I will not raise my hand to kill you. I fear Allah, the Lord of all worlds." These were not words of weakness. They were words of strength and trust in Allah. He refused to answer evil with evil. He chose patience over violence. But jealousy had already blinded the other brother. When a person allows pride and anger to grow unchecked, it becomes difficult to see the truth. The whispers of Shaitan felt louder than the voice of conscience. The rejected brother began to believe that killing his own brother would remove his shame and restore his pride. For the first time in human history, the thought of murder became real. What started as jealousy slowly turned into hatred. After he killed his brother, silence filled the air. The anger that once controlled him suddenly disappeared. In its place came shock, fear, and deep regret. He stood there staring at the lifeless body, unable to believe what he had done. Just moments before, jealousy had felt powerful and urgent. Now it felt empty and meaningless. His brother was no longer speaking, no longer moving. The reality of death was something he had never seen before. This was the first death in human history. He did not know what to do with the body. There had been no graves, no funerals, no example to follow. Confusion surrounded him. The same hands that had committed the crime now trembled with uncertainty. He felt alone, carrying a burden that was heavier than he had imagined. The victory he thought he would feel never came. Instead, guilt pressed down on his heart. Then Allah sent a sign to teach him a lesson. A crow appeared nearby. He watched as the bird scratched the ground and buried another dead crow. It was a simple action, yet it carried a powerful message. Through this small creature, Allah showed him how to hide the body of his brother. He realized that even a bird had more knowledge than him in that moment. Shame overwhelmed him. He cried out in regret, blaming himself for being unable to even match the understanding of a crow. He dug into the earth and buried his brother's body, but burying the body did not bury his guilt. The weight of his action remained in his heart. Regret had come, but it had come too late. When the news reached Prophet Adam a.s., sorrow filled his heart. A father who had guided his children toward faith was now faced with the pain of losing one son and seeing another fall into sin. The first family on earth had experienced its first tragedy. The consequences of jealousy had become painfully real, and humanity had learned its first hard lesson about the danger of uncontrolled anger. This tragic event did not end with one death. It became a lesson written into human history forever. What happened between the two brothers was more than a family dispute, it was the beginning of a pattern that would repeat again and again across generations. Jealousy, if left unchecked, can grow into hatred. Hatred, if fed by pride, can lead to destruction. The righteous brother became a symbol of patience and faith. He showed that true strength is not in fighting back, but in trusting Allah even in the most difficult moments. When he refused to raise his hand in violence, he proved that fear of Allah is greater than fear of people. His response teaches humanity that we are responsible for our actions, even when others choose wrongdoing. The other brother became a warning for all mankind. His story shows how a small seed of jealousy can grow into a deadly tree if it is not removed from the heart. He was not forced into his crime. He made a choice. Instead of correcting himself and asking Allah for forgiveness when his sacrifice was rejected, he allowed pride to control him. One wrong feeling led to one wrong decision, and that decision changed history. Later, Muhammad, Pbuh, taught that whenever an unjust killing happens, a share of the sin returns to the first one who started this evil act. This shows how serious the crime was. It was not only a personal sin. It opened the door to future violence among humans. The story teaches that the real battlefield is inside the heart. Envy, pride, and anger are silent enemies. If a person does not fight them with faith, patience, and remembrance of Allah, they can take control. The first murder was not caused by poverty or war. It was caused by jealousy over Allah's decision. The lesson is clear and timeless. Protect your heart from envy, accept Allah's wisdom with trust, and never allow temporary anger to lead to permanent regret.